It is 12:10, so we're going to get this thing rolling. Ring-a-ding-ding. Welcome, Rotarians and guests, to the Rochester Rotary July 21st Zoom meeting. My name is Ron Lichtel, and I serve as the Rochester Rotary Club president. Would you all stand and please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and
God,
justice
for all.
Okay, now would everyone please join me in the four-way test
I forget it.
of the things we think, say, or do. Is it the truth?
Yep.
All concerned.
Goodwill and better friendships.
Beneficial to all concerned. And Wayne's fifth, and will it be fun for all?
Will be fun for all. Thank you.
Mr. David Eardley, could you lead us in our invocation, please?
Yes, Ron, thank you. Gracious God, we thank you for this day to gather as Rotarians, to gather as friends and of those who care for each other and care for our community. Be with us as we put service above self, as we do our part to encourage health and healing in our community, to be signs of positive change in the world around us. Bless this gathering in this time together. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen. All right, if we have any guests, please enter your names, phone numbers, and emails so that in the Zoom chat, so our membership chair, Stuart Signer, can acknowledge your interest. Today, our 15th sign-on, I got to look back to see who that was. I think it was Dick Spees. We'll give Dick Spees the go-ahead with no fines today. Do we have any happy bucks? We have some comments.
I'm happy that my grandkids are here from Texas and we're having a really great time.
Okay. We got one from Wayne Hodges. Is today June 21st or June 14th? Wow. Tim Duncan says, I'm happy to be going on a virtual date on Wednesday to see Dave Matthews Band. Vince, please find me for the cost of the tickets. Okay, and we got Lindy Luddy on with us today. Let's see. Kyle says, I'm happy because I'm down 20 pounds since the start of the quarantine. I think I gained that 20. Matina Kenton Gibbons, which I think is Vince, I'm happy I got the chance to take my vet out, M21 concourse this weekend. I would have liked to have seen that. Wayne Hodges, happy to have survived today's surgery. You got that right. I hope you're feeling better, Wayne. You will be being able to see a lot better, I'll tell you that. I couldn't believe it when I had it. And somebody mentioned that Tim Crawford looked like a radio broadcaster on WJR. And Russell said, sorry, she doesn't have a mic. All right. Member birthdays. Today we have one, Bill Wagner. His birthday was basically is on July 18th. And club anniversaries, we had one, but it was misspoke last week. It was David Eardley was 7 years on July 13th. So first of all, can we all sing happy birthday to Bill Wagner? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Bill. Happy birthday
Birthday
to you.
to you.
$5.
That was pretty pathetic.
Everyone knows, I hope, that next week, July 21st, Rotary Gateway Park gazebo meeting has been canceled. Basically the person that donated the money for, everything there has asked us to put it off till next year. Next week, we have a Paul Harris Fellow recipient awarded by Ernie Schaefer, so don't miss that. And Ron DeLitto and Tom Nouveau will be talking next week on charities. Rotarian of the Week, that was from Ernie Schaefer. It was awarded to Carrie Riggs last week. So Carrie Riggs, are you with us today?
I'm here, alive and well.
There you go.
I would like to present this Rotarian of the Week award to somebody that joined about the same time as I did, about 12 years ago. And then he dropped out of Rotary because I think he had other business priorities. And since then, he rejoined about a year ago. And he's become active in the club. He's one of the sheriffs and some other activities that I'm not aware. But I'd like to present this award and for his new commitment to Rotary, Peter Stuhlreier.
All right.
And I know he's not here.
Congratulations. All right, and is David Blair here today? David Blair is supposed to be our sheriff today. How about our real in-town sheriff? Is he here, police chief? Well, that's not good. Well, I'll tell you what, I had to appoint a sheriff today. Wayne, you're pretty good at finding people. Wayne, you're muted.
Why don't we start with you paying $10?
For what? No, you can't find the president. And I already paid 25 for the month.
How soon they forget? How soon they forget? Well, I tell you what. Did anybody miss going down to the Woodward Dream Cruise? Did anybody miss that? If you missed it, okay, throw a couple bucks in, okay, to help everybody else that's missing it, feel better about it. And how many of you are paying attention to the current national election going on in the country?
It's getting crazy.
If you're paying attention to it, okay, then you might as well just go ahead and throw $5 in because and if you're not paying attention to it, well, then you ought to pay $3. Okay, because you should be, okay. But if you are, you're going to feel sorry for yourself, and so how about COVID-19? Can everybody spell COVID-19? Think about it now. Can you spell it? COVID-19. That's how many letters? 5 letters. Okay. So if you now know how to spell COVID-19, that's $5. Okay. $1 for each letter. Okay. And how many of you have thought about the Rotarians this week that aren't here on our meeting today? If you've thought about any of our fellow Rotarians that aren't with us today, that's going to cost you another $3. And if how many of you had a Zoom call amongst your family or friends? Anybody? Can I see a show of hands? Okay. No hands? Oh, I see a few hands up there.
John Somerville.
Okay.
Of course.
Well, if you've had if you put your hand up, then let's pay $1 for each person in your family that was on that Zoom call. Okay. up to our limit of $5. How many of you are enjoying the great weather we're having? Anybody? Anybody enjoying the great weather? Okay. Well, if you are, then you should be paying $1 for enjoying it. And if you're not, okay, you are so far gone, you need to pay $5 because you need help. Because we are having some great, fantastic Michigan summer weather. I love Michigan weather in the summertime. Tom, if I haven't insulted anybody yet, it's just going to get ugly. So why don't we stop here?
Well, I think you should fine Phil Loman $5 for that hat. That thing looks ridiculous.
Well, you know, I was going to find Phil, but he's all fezzed up anyway. So,
Sheriff just joined. Better late than never. Sorry about that, guys.
Well, good.
That David, you
Good
need
that
to
you
set
can start
up
finding everybody
David.
right now.
Now, I just joined. My phone was going off, and, you know, I was busy laying on the beach here. Look at that.
Oh, jeez.
Everybody see that?
Yeah.
Now, I get to participants here and see who's all online. All right. Let's lay some fines down here. We're up in northern Michigan. We're in Mackinac City on the lake here. Carrie Riggs, you ever been to Mackinac City?
Been there once.
Pay $1 because on the island you can't drive, so it's a $1 taxi ride fine there. I see Ernie Schaefer is on. How you doing, Ernie? $5 kayak rental fee. We're gonna assess Ernie Schaefer there. And Wayne, officially no longer president of the club. I'm gonna fine you $5 times every meeting you've led because you're off limits. And it's finally time that you paid. Tim Crawford, you know, we think about boating, we think about risks and insurance, and, you know, you being the insurance guy, that's a $5 premium they're going to charge you. Who else is on the line? Dave Erdley, we're going to fine you $5. The $5 preacher fee for you, $5. Jay Eastman, here you like to wakeboard. It's a $5 fun in the water fine. Jeff Whitby, we're going to give you the $3 trombone repair fee, being our brass specialist there. See, Marty's on line too, Marty McClure. It's a $5 s'mores fee for you. We got the, can't seem to get the fire going, so we can't make s'mores, which means I got to find you $5 there. Vince Matina's on the call too. Good to see you, Vince. It's a $5 romantic walk on the beach fee. You can message me later. I'll tell you what that's all about. Ray Dorr is on the line. Hi, Ray. $5 fee for you. It's a charcoal and lighter fluid fee there. Dick Speece is on the phone here. How you doing, Dick? It's a $5 sandcastle fee. Stomps on kids' sandcastles. It's no fun. Hey, Tom, you hear about the Knights of the Round Table? You know why it was a round table? Who called it a round table? Circumference did that. It's a circumference. I see we got Roger Bird. Hey, Roger. Just bought a 2-story house. They told me a joke about my 2-story house. It's a story on, I think I screwed up the punchline there. Story on the ground, story on the top. It's a 2-story house, a $5 fine. Shirley, my son, caught him chewing on an extension cord, so I had to ground him. It's a $5 fine for you. Let's see who else is on the line here. Jerry Gross. Jerry, sorry to hear you got fired from the calendar factory for taking the day off. That was no good. $5 fine for you. Alan, hope all is well. Alan, it's a sad story. Do you hear about the kidnapping at Rochester schools? I mean, it's fine. They woke him up, but he took a nap there in class. Anybody who hasn't been fined, go ahead, reach in your pocket there, pull out $5, open up the chat down below. Put in at least $5. We're collecting money for charity here. If you're on vacation like me, or if you're back at the office, what Rotary's doing is very important. Be generous. It all goes to good cause. Back to you, Captain. Thank you so much for Mackinac City.
I think the sheriff ought to fine him $5 for being late.
I think you better hold your horses there, because eventually you're not going to be president anymore. And I know an elephant never forgets.
I'll be all right.
All right, folks. Adios.
Mr. Tim Duncan.
Yes, sir.
There you go. Can you,
All right, so it's
can you introduce our speaker today?
absolutely. Our speaker today is Dr. Jay Eastman. He's lived his entire life in Rochester Hills, Michigan. He graduated from Wayne State University School of Medicine. Did his internship and residency in pediatrics at Children's Hospital of Michigan. Dr. Eastman is a board-certified pediatrician and a fellow of the American Academy of Pediatrics. He is an associate professor of pediatrics at Oakland University William Beaumont Medical School and a clinical assistant professor at Wayne State University School of Medicine. Most of us know Jay as a fellow Rotarian, joining Rochester Rotary Club in October of 2000. He established the Guatemalan Medical Mission in 2008, returning several times per year to help children who need medical care in that region. He is also our current foundation chair for District 6380, serving in that role for the past 3 years. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Jay Eastman.
All right.
Well, hi, everybody. I went from outer space to the library kind of concept here. Although if you look real carefully, you would notice that none of these books has ever been opened or touched. That's sort of how it goes with these backgrounds. But I'm going to talk to you about something that's a lot more serious today. And the title is really Fighting COVID in a Heterogeneous Society. The thing I was asked to talk about was masks, but you can't really talk about masks without getting into why it is that we're using them. And part of why we're using them and why we're still using them is that the people who are the experts in infectious disease around the country, as they try to approach this pandemic, really found themselves at a loss to explain a lot of times what this pandemic has done and how it has acted, because it has not acted in the way of the things that have happened in the past. And even to the extent that looking at the end game for COVID-19, the predictions back in December, when people first started looking at this, when it was still in China before it left there, there were three possibilities that were spoken about. One was that it would be a slow and steady burn, sort of like regular courses of infections. One that it would be hills and valleys, on and off infection, and one that it would be like an influenza pandemic, which comes in waves. And it's turned out that none of those things has been true. The thing that is being said about it now is that it's acting more like a forest fire, and where as long as there are susceptibles, like as long as there's wood to be burned, the virus seems to find those susceptibles. And so we are looking at a situation where we are going to have to find some way to stop the virus from getting to the susceptibles. And we've got some problems with that. Now, Dr. Fauci, and all of the things I'm telling you, I've picked up through looking through various medical research feed media, rather than CNN and the other news reports. So this is pretty much up to date as to what the expert thinking is. But what we're seeing right now are more cases, but there's some good news with that. There are more cases, but there are fewer fatalities. The reason for that seems to be that the people that are now being diagnosed are about 10 to 15 years younger than the ones that were being diagnosed even 2 months ago. And to some extent that's behavioral, but to another extent it's because we're getting a lot better at protecting our elderly people. The nursing homes and elderly really are staying home and being protected from infection much better than they were at first, so they're not being infected and killed at the rate that they were. And of course, whenever Dr. Fauci gives you some good news, he's always going to give you some bad news too. And the bad news is that this may just be a lag phase. It may be that we're seeing this and that there may soon be an uptick in fatalities and a higher fatality rate. We're hoping that he's not correct about that. So what can we do to stop this? What quivers do we have in our arrow, if you will? Well, number one, unfortunately, is masks. And I say unfortunately because what we're used to in this country is the development of a magic bullet, a shot of penicillin, a shot of vaccine, something that we can develop quickly and give to a lot of people and slow down or stop any kind of a infection that threatens to take hold. But what we have now really are masks, social distancing, and cleanliness, washing our hands and so forth. In general, there's good news with masks because generally they are effective in reducing risks. There are all kinds of studies comparing healthcare workers versus non-healthcare workers, household contacts versus non-household contacts, and so forth and so on, that show that using masks really contain the infection rate and lower it. Now, obviously, places where you need to have very strict isolation, the tighter fitting masks like the N95s and so forth, where there's a tight fit around the nose and mouth and material within it that slows down the spread of droplets, are better for things like doing surgery or up close kinds of contacts. But even cloth masks that are looser do reduce the spread and the infection rate by 70 to 80%. And so it's very important that we get in the habit of using them. Now, why is that? Well, throughout the respiratory tract, there is fluid with air flowing over it. And when the air flows out of the respiratory tract, depending on where the location is in the respiratory tract and the stage of disease and the type of respiratory activity, infected particles can come out with more or less force and go more or less distance from the person who is standing there unmasked toward someone who is standing there unmasked. But if both have masks on, the spread from one person to another is reduced considerably if both have masks on. It sounds simple, but it's really basic to trying to slow down the spread of the disease. The other thing that becomes important if people are in enclosed spaces is the engineering of the flow of air throughout the area. For example, in a restaurant, if the airflow and ventilation is good, it's less likely that one person can stand in an area of the restaurant and infect a lot of people. They might infect one or two people near them, but The rest of the spread is contained by the ventilation of the room. The same would be true in other closed spaces like classrooms, like theaters, like stadia, those sorts of things. Interestingly, it turns out that the spread of this virus on surfaces is very, very little, except for things that are handled repeatedly, like doorknobs or push buttons on elevators, or even push buttons, I suppose, on a gas pump that you wanted to get gas from. So the best thing that we have right now are masks plus distancing plus hygiene. That has better results, and we hope that without a lot of additional lockdowns, that this will get us to the point where we don't need all of these precautions. Right now, in US and UK, the immunity rate is about 5%. Those are people who have gotten the disease and gotten better. In New York, it's more like 20 to 25%, but it needs to be at 70% plus for us to really have a good chance of staying immune and not having the fire continue to burn. And, you know, there's been a lot of talk about some sort of thing flew over just a moment ago. But really, I think we're talking more about one wave that just is going to continue to go until we can stop it. Now come the things that are not so good. We have not really been able so far to develop a therapy that we can give, an antibiotic, a shot of penicillin, a shot of this or that we can give on a grand scale to either prevent or treat this illness. There are a couple of real problems with that. One is it slows down our ability to develop vaccines, but also it is making it very difficult to treat the people who do get sick with anything more than symptomatic care. There are 70 different companies that are working on different forms of therapy with clinical trials. And anything that looks like it might have antiviral activity has been tried and is being tried. Anything from antihistamines to antimalarials to antipsychotics to anti-anxiety medicines and so on. The one that is being tried right now that is probably the most promising one is remdesivir. You've probably heard about it in the news. Every time it's mentioned or the company making it is mentioned in the news, the stock market shoots up. But it has only been shown in some patients in an ICU situation to somewhat reduce the severity of the symptoms. It certainly doesn't seem to be the answer, but trials are continuing. I look at that particular medicine as sort of a cousin of Tamiflu, if you're familiar with Tamiflu and people who are treating influenza. To my mind, Tamiflu is sort of, if you take Tamiflu, you get better in 7 days. If you don't take it, you get better in a week. But perhaps remdesivir will work a little bit better than that. It does seem to reduce the symptoms in severely infected people. The one that is going to come along, but unfortunately a little bit more slowly, are medicines that are monoclonal antibodies. You will in the future be hearing about monoclonal antibodies because they are very specific, and in animal models they specifically go at the problem that COVID causes in people's bodies, the protein or the messenger RNA, and they can stop in animals. They can stop that virus in its tracks. And as we get so that it's safe and effective and we get the trials done as quickly as possible, those show real promise in terms of being able to help us. Another thing that I ran across that I'd like to just share with you, because I'm very interested in how this is going to play out, is the use of ultraviolet light. As you remember, the light spectrum, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, ultraviolet light has been used for a long time in sterilizing things like operating rooms or other places where you want to wipe out viruses. The problem with ultraviolet light has always been that it will kill viruses, but it will also kill normal human cells, skin tissue or corneas. However, if you use slightly ultraviolet light, or called far violet light, that has a little bit lower wavelength, you can kill all the viruses and not injure human skin cells or cornea cells. It looks very promising, and the people who are working on it are at Columbia, and they're very excited about the possibility. And when you think about it, if we could get those kind of lights and put them into classrooms, for example, that would effectively eliminate any of the virus that's in the classroom. So kids could not spread it to one another, whether they're close to each other, far from each other, running into each other, the other things that kids do. It would be particularly helpful for that. So if I were a school superintendent or a university president or somebody who wanted to open up my basketball arena or like that, I would be looking around to see if anybody's making these commercially. Certainly ultraviolet lights are being made commercially and are being used in places where you turn them off once people start coming there, because you don't dare hurt the skin or the eyes. But these could run all the time, and if you get the LED form of these, they can be relatively inexpensive too. The problem is I don't think anybody's up and making them commercially at the present time, but that would be something that would really help us getting ready while we're finding a way to develop a vaccine. And I don't want to say lots and lots about vaccines, but I will tell you what's going on at the moment, and then I'm going to stop for questions. Right now, there are 19 vaccines being studied. 4 of them are close to being approved for use. It's being called in the media a vaccine race. I think the better way to think of the vaccines, not so much as a race, but a collaboration. We will probably end up needing at least 2 and maybe all 4 of the vaccines that are close to being approved when it comes down to trying to immunize the world. You know, we're talking about 2 billion doses of vaccine. That's quite a tall order. And right now, the studies, I don't know if you're familiar with how these things are studied. Phase 1, they take a very small group of people and they give them the vaccine and see if it makes antibody and if it causes any great harm. They do that in a few people who are volunteers. Then if they get one that seems to be helpful without causing harm, they go on to the smaller ones that are maybe 1,000 people. They start out with maybe 50 people, and they start going with 1,000 people who are volunteers, same way. And then on to the pivotal trials, which are phase 3, with more like 20 or 30,000 people. And those they start to do in double-blind fashion, which are neither the person nor the investigator knows whether the person's getting a vaccine or getting a non-vaccine, and to see if the vaccine truly is effective and safe. What we're trying to do, or what they're trying to do as the government, is at the same time as those kind of trials go on, which some of those have already started this month, and some of those have already started this month, and all of them will be going probably before summer is out, is allowing the manufacturer to start making the vaccine at the same time, so that if the trial is successful, if it's a vaccine that's approved, by the time that we know that 6 to 12 months from now, we will be producing the vaccine enough to start using it. That's they call that warp speed, and that's as fast as you can go with the vaccine. Now that would, if we really lucked out and there were a vaccine that is safe and effective, that we would be willing to try on larger numbers of humans, that would put us near the end of this year or into next year. Most people who are looking at this say we're closer to a year away from having a vaccine to use. So putting that in perspective, we really are talking about using our basic protection for at least another year. And hopefully coming out of lockdown, as fewer and fewer of us are in the susceptible category and more of us are not. But it's gonna take some time, and it's not something that's gonna happen automatically. We are in a lot better shape in this state than some other states. That said, we're still gonna have to be very, very careful and still use these basic ways of protecting ourselves in order to move forward with the things that we all like to do. And I think that really is a good stopping place. I'll just tell you that one of the vaccines is kind of interesting, and it's being produced by Moderna, and it just started trials this week, and it's doing its safety trial. And the reason that it's so interesting is that it's not the usual kind of vaccine. This vaccine is made from using RNA and causing the protein to be made within the individual, who then sees it as foreign and makes antibodies against the actual protein spike of the virus. This is much different from any other vaccine. This is the first time an RNA vaccine has been produced. It's a new technology, but if it works, it's going to be highly effective and very safe. So that said, and by the way, they're saying it's 12 to 18 months away, assuming that the trials go as they hope. So I'm going to stop there, and I will attempt to field questions. Believe me, I'm not an immunologist or an infectious disease guy or Dr. Fauci, but I'll give it a whirl.
Yeah, Jay, we got a couple of questions. First, someone had asked what type of UV light you called is safe.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's called far UV light as opposed to UV light. UV light is, I think, above 240 wavelength. The the far UV light is like 220, something like that. It's just a different wavelength. It's not out there quite as far as the ultraviolet light, but it still is ultraviolet, but not so ultraviolet, I guess is a way of looking at it. And for that reason, it is not as, well, it's not as toxic to human tissue.
You had a question from your wife. She says, do you know what a vaccine rollout would look like? For example, would they give it to elderly people, or, you know, immunize compromised people first, then make it available to the general public?
When they get to phase 2, they will use the people that are least likely to have it hurt them. So that would be young adults, say age 18 to 30, and those people are much less likely to be injured by the virus or by the vaccine than an elderly person. But they will start with that group, and they're above 18, so they can give informed consent. You know, this might hurt you. This has a small possibility of more than hurting you. And so, you know, they would start with that group. Then for the final trial, they will definitely include some elderly people as well. And that the final trials usually are between 35,000, maybe 40,000 people that they would use in a double-blind fashion.
Jay, I think the question was more about when the vaccine is approved and they're rolling it out to the public, who's going to get the vaccine first?
Oh, I think once they're rolling it out to the public, they're going to give it to whoever wants it. And, you know, the question will be, you know, there are some people that don't take vaccines at all. There are some people who would be very skeptical of this vaccine and want to see a few 100,000 people take it before they do. But there will be some people like me who really want to have this vaccine. Then the question becomes, which countries, which groups of people. You know, there are a lot of there are going to be a lot of issues about the availability for different groups of people. I think once there's one that looks as though it's safe and effective, and who decides all of that, I don't know. I can tell you that various countries have made agreements. Our country has, and UK has, and the European Union has, with various manufacturers that when it's available, they've got dibs on X million doses, and how it gets distributed from there, it will be up to the powers that be, I guess.
Question is, do we need to wear masks outside?
You don't need to wear masks outside if you're not going to be within 6 feet of somebody. Okay. You know, if you're going to an outdoor restaurant, for example, and you sit down, and I mean, outdoor restaurants are the great place to go for dinner, because there's going to be great ventilation. There's going to be breezes coming through. You won't have people within very much proximity of your table, and I mean that's a great place. Indoor restaurants, we have gone out for dinner and done that. You know, had the masks off while we ate. The servers have all had masks on. The problem in some restaurants is that some of them are not well ventilated. If you go in there, I would scope it out when you walk in the door, and what you don't want is to be next door to a place where the air is coming out of and then going right to the next tables. You want to be far away from that.
Ray Dorr had a question. He said the after effects on those that have had the COVID seem to be harder hitting than other viruses. Why do you think that's the case?
Say the question again.
The after effects on those that have had COVID seem to be harder hitting than other viruses. Why is that the case?
I don't know. It's the nature of this particular virus, I think. There are some serious problems with cardiac after effects, some serious problems pulmonary, and there now it appears as though there are some problems with mentation and I wouldn't call it brain injury, but brain inflammation. Wow. And fortunately, all of those things are uncommon, but they do happen. And I don't know. SARS. This is a SARS virus. This is SARS-2. If you remember the SARS epidemic, SARS was actually the first one was 10 times as tough as this, and it didn't do the same thing in terms of spreading. And many people thought this would act like SARS-1 and sort of peter out, which has failed to happen. I mean, it has just gone on and gone everywhere. It's acted in one sense, it's acted like the epidemic of 1918. If you've read the book, probably many of you have, that'll scare the bejesus out of you. But it has not done what that epidemic did for a couple of reasons. One, we don't have the same clustering of people at things like army bases and like we did in 1919. But also, there hasn't been a mutation going through this thing that has mutated into something a lot more virulent. That's what happened in 1919. After about 2 times through the group, it was a vicious virus. This hasn't really done that. It's a very infectious virus, but it's not as likely to kill or seriously injure you. I mean, 3 people dying out of 10,000 still is not great. I mean, you don't want to settle for that, but it's not anything like happened back then. This is just the result of a bad pandemic.
Linda asked also, what size groups are possible to use social distancing and masks and have some safety? In other words, how big a group becomes really manageable?
Again, I would differentiate between outdoor and indoor, but I think you could easily put make the calculation of 6 feet around you and that into the square footage of the room, and that's how many you could put into a room. Outdoors, it would be a lot easier. I mean, you could have quite a few more people around. Pardon me. Because of the constant ventilation that you would get in an outdoor setting. But I would say 2,000-foot room, 6 feet squared, divided into 2,000 feet. That's how many you could have. It's been handed a calculator.
A question I have.
Nothing like having a helpmate.
Yeah, I have a question. I keep hearing over and over and over. I mean, just ballpark, what's the population of the U.S. and how many have been affected, how many have died? I mean, and you try to compare that to like just the regular flu.
Yeah, the population of the U.S. is around 300 million, and I think this. What really annoys me is this is sort of this is sort of like a telethon, yes, we're up to 60,000 deaths, but I think we sit at 60,000 deaths as of this morning, and cases, 300,000 cases. I don't know. But that's in this country.
Right.
And so the case fatality rate is not huge, but it's the kind of thing that, you don't want it to become true that case fatality rate is the fatality rate for all 300 million people.
Way more than you said, way more.
Way more?
Yeah, way more. See deaths, look at deaths, 138,000.
Yeah. What
You
did I
said
say?
60,000.
Oh, I'm sorry. 138,000.
Yeah, 60 is in Michigan, I thought.
Now 60,000 cases in Michigan, and
Okay.
about 6,000 deaths, I think. But, I mean, when you take the percentage isn't so high, but if you extrapolate that to the entire population, that's a lot of people dying. And it gets, as time goes by, it gets so everybody has had an encounter with someone who has died from COVID, or knows somebody whose mom or grandma or aunt or somebody has died. And as you get like that, it's it's something that's very sobering, and you really don't want to go there.
Yeah.
And you can't say that we won't go there. I personally think that what we're seeing is the beginning of a virus that is not as virulent as it was 3 months ago, but that may just be wishful thinking. I'd like that to be true, but what we're going to see is, here Steve is putting on here 69,722 confirmed cases and just over 6,000 deaths.
That's in Michigan.
In Michigan. In
This is in the United States, right there.
the United States, it's 3,296,599 cases and 134,884 total deaths. Now, 134,000 deaths divided by 300 million people, still,
0.0046.
Right, but whenever I'm quoting statistics to anybody, I always stop and say, I can quote you the statistics, but your mother, it's 1 out of 1.
Right. I agree. No death is acceptable. But and again, I was trying to compare, I keep hearing this. How does that compare to what the flu does every year? I mean, that's what my question was.
Oh, yeah, the flu does kill it's in the tens of thousands of people every year in the country. I don't know about, it seems to me it's about 40,000 people a year. And we don't see it so much because it's in Oakland County. This is of COVID. Steve, Oakland County had just under 10,000 cases with just over 1,000 deaths.
All right, we're getting into overtime a little bit. Anybody that wants, I mean, Jay, would you be willing to stay after a little bit if somebody's got some questions?
Sure.
Okay. We're going to close the meeting out, and we're going to keep it open for anybody that wants to chat and ask Jay a few questions. So as of right now, which is...
My gosh, I got to do my commercial.
Okay.
Here we go.
Show the Rotary thing.
Now check it out here.
Rotary.
Huh?
You are the man.
This is, where's my thing here? From the district and the Club of Ann Arbor North. The kids out there have a deal worked out with some women who are making masks in partnership with, I think, the Rotaractors. And you can buy a mask, and if you buy one, the district will donate one to someone in need. So you help the women because these masks are made in partnership with Rotary. You protect yourself. It's a win-win-win, is what I'm saying. So contact me, and I can give you the website, and you can customize masks. You can get them in various colors. Here we have yellow. Where is it? Here we have yellow. That the teal you already saw.
He wants to sign off.
White. Huh? Even blue, which I don't recommend. But and or you can get a multitude of them. They're great, and they're a great price. So with that,
Jay, I want to thank you. That was definitely enlightening on what's going on. So as of right now, we are closing the meeting out. Ding, ding, ding. And anybody that wants to stay on, by all means, we're going to leave it open. John will end up closing it out probably in about 15 minutes or so. Thank you, Jay. That was awesome.
Pleasure, Rod.